The envelope sat on my kitchen counter for 3 days before I could bring myself to open it. It was cream-colored, expensive paper, the kind you use for weddings. My hands shook as I finally slid my finger under the seal, already knowing what I would find inside. Mr. and Mrs. David Richardson request the honor of your presence at the marriage of their daughter Emma Louise Richardson. My granddaughter, my Emma, the little girl I had rocked through colic, taught to read, walked to her first day of kindergarten when her parents were too busy with work. She was getting married in 6 weeks, and I was being invited like a distant cousin? No phone call, no visit. Just a formal invitation that arrived after I saw the announcement on Facebook, after half the town already knew. I sank into my chair and stared at the words until they blurred. The wedding party list was printed on a separate card. Bridesmaids, her cousins from her mother's side, her college friends. Maid of honor, her other grandmother, Patricia. Patricia who lived in Florida and visited twice a year. Patricia who sent checks for birthdays, but had never helped Emma with homework or sat up with her when she had nightmares. I wasn't in the wedding party at all. I wasn't even mentioned in the Facebook post Emma had written about her amazing grandmother Patricia, who would stand beside her on her special day. The silence in my house became deafening. I could hear the clock ticking in the hallway, the refrigerator humming, my own heartbeat in my ears. Outside, the world continued. Inside, something in me quietly shattered. At 65 years old, I finally understood what I had refused to see for years. I had become optional, convenient when needed, forgettable when not. I spent that evening doing what I always did when my heart hurt. I baked. My hands knew the recipes by memory. The oatmeal cookies David loved, the lemon bars Michael always requested, the apple turnovers Emma used to call Grandma's magic. As I rolled out dough, I let myself remember. Michael and David were 8 and 10 when their father, my Thomas, died of a heart attack in our driveway. One moment he was carrying groceries, laughing about something the boys had done. The next moment he was gone, and I was a widow at 37 with 2 sons who needed me to be everything. So I became everything. I worked night shifts at the textile factory so I could be home when they got off the school bus. I learned to fix the car myself, watching YouTube videos at midnight. I sewed their clothes, grew vegetables in the backyard, and made every holiday magical, even when the bank account showed $17. I never remarried. The men who asked didn't understand that my sons came first, always. I built my entire life around making sure they never felt the absence of their father. And they grew into good men. I was so proud. Michael became an engineer, married Lisa, had Emma. David became a school principal, married Cheryl, had 2 boys. They bought houses, took vacations, built the stable lives I had sacrificed everything to give them. When Michael and Lisa needed a down payment on their house 12 years ago, I gave them $20,000, my entire savings. "We'll pay you back," Michael promised. They never did. When David's boys were born premature and the medical bills overwhelmed them, I took out a loan against my house. $35,000. "Just until we get through this," David said, gripping my hands. "I don't know what we'd do without you."
I told him not to worry. Family takes care of family. When Emma was 3 and Lisa wanted to go back to work full-time, I said yes before she finished asking. I kept Emma 5 days a week for 4 years, changed my entire schedule, stopped going to my book club, quit volunteering at the hospital. My life became nap times and graham crackers and reading Goodnight Moon until I had it memorized. I loved every second of it. Emma and I had our routines. Tuesday was library day, Friday was park day. Every day at 3 o'clock, we had cookie time, where we sat at my kitchen table and she told me about her day in her serious little voice. She called me Grandma May and told everyone I was her best friend. When she started kindergarten, I cried. Not because I was losing her, but because I was so grateful I had been given those years. I thought I was building something permanent, a foundation of love that nothing could shake. I didn't understand that I was just useful, and once my usefulness ended, so did my importance. The shift happened so gradually I didn't notice it at first. Emma started elementary school and didn't need daily care anymore. The calls from Lisa became less frequent. When I offered to pick Emma up from school, Lisa said the after-school program was more convenient. When I invited them for Sunday dinner, they were busy. When I suggested taking Emma to the zoo, she had a play date. I told myself they were just busy. Modern families are busy. I shouldn't take it personally. But then my birthday came and went without a call. When I mentioned it a week later, Michael said, "Oh my God, Mom, I'm so sorry. It completely slipped my mind. We've been so swamped." The Christmas I wasn't invited to their house until 2 days after Christmas. We're doing just immediate family on the day itself, you understand. I started to understand that I was no longer immediate. I was extended, optional, an afterthought. The worst part was watching Emma grow distant. She was 10, then 12, then 15, a stranger with my granddaughter's face. When I called, she was polite but hurried. When I tried to plan our old Tuesday library trips, she had homework or friends or practice. The last real conversation we had was 2 years ago. She was 16, sitting in my kitchen, eating cookies out of politeness while her mother picked up something she'd left at my house. "How's school?" I asked. "Fine." "Are you excited about the dance team?" "I guess." "Emma, honey, is everything okay?" She looked up at me then, and for just a moment I saw something flicker across her face. Guilt, maybe, or pity. "Everything's fine, Grandma. I have a lot going on." She hugged me before she left, and it felt like goodbye.
3 weeks after the wedding invitation arrived, I discovered just how complete my exclusion had become. I ran into Helen Porter at the grocery store. Helen had been my friend for 30 years, since our boys played Little League together. "May," she said, her face lighting up. "I saw on Facebook about Emma's engagement party last month. It looked beautiful. You must be so excited." I stood there in the cereal aisle with my cart, my mouth open, unable to form words. "The engagement party?" I finally managed. Helen's smile faltered. "The one at that fancy restaurant downtown? Lisa posted all those photos of the family toast and, oh, May, you were there, weren't you?" I wasn't there. There had been an engagement party for my only granddaughter, and I hadn't been invited. I hadn't even been told it was happening. I mumbled something to Helen and left my cart right there in the middle of the store. I walked out to my car and sat in the driver's seat, staring at nothing. That night, I did what I had trained myself not to do. I went through Facebook systematically, looking at my son's pages, my daughters-in-law's pages, Emma's page. The engagement party had been 3 months ago. 50 people attended. Both my sons were there with their families. Patricia was there, flown in from Florida. There were toasts and laughter and a slideshow of Emma growing up. In that slideshow, I appeared in exactly 3 photos, all from when she was a toddler. The 4 years I raised her condensed into 3 pictures, then nothing.
as if I had ceased to exist when my usefulness ended. There were family beach trips I hadn't known about, holiday celebrations I wasn't included in, birthday parties for my grandsons I had never been invited to. My sons had built entire lives, created years of memories, celebrated every milestone without me. I had been erased while still living. I sat at my computer until 4 in the morning, looking at photographs of my family, and I felt something I had never allowed myself to feel toward my children. Anger. Not the hot, explosive kind, the cold, clarifying kind that burns away illusions. They had taken everything I had, my money, my time, my youth, my energy, my love. And when there was nothing left to take, they had discarded me like an empty vessel. And I had let them. The phone call came on a Tuesday morning. I was watering my tomato plants when my cell phone rang. Michael. He never called anymore unless he wanted something. "Hey, Mom." His voice was bright, cheerful, the voice he used when he was about to ask for a favor. "How are you doing?" "I'm fine, Michael." "Listen, I'm calling because Lisa and I are in a bit of a bind. Emma's wedding is getting expensive, you know how these things are, and we're about $10,000 short on what we need. I was wondering if you could help us out. Just a loan, of course. We'll pay you back after the wedding when things settle down." I stood there in my garden, phone pressed to my ear, and something inside me went perfectly still. $10,000 for a wedding I wasn't even part of, for a granddaughter who hadn't called me in 6 months, to be paid back later, just like the $20,000 from 12 years ago, just like the $35,000 from David that I was still making loan payments on.
"Mom, you there?" "I'm here," I said softly. "So what do you think? Can you help us out?" I looked at my little house, the one I had taken a loan against to help them. I thought about my bank account with its $3,000, my emergency fund, carefully rebuilt over years of cutting every corner. I thought about the dental work I needed but couldn't afford, the roof that needed repairs, the fact that I was 65 years old and still working part-time at the library because I had given everything to children who didn't want me anymore. "No," I said. The word hung in the air like a bell ringing. "What?" "No, Michael. I can't help you." "Mom, come on. It's Emma's wedding. Your granddaughter. This is important." "Then perhaps you should have made me feel important too." Silence. Then, carefully, "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I wasn't invited to the engagement party. It means I received a wedding invitation like a stranger. It means I haven't had a real conversation with Emma in 2 years. It means I'm not in the wedding party. It means I've been erased from this family, except when you need my money. Mom, that's not fair." "Isn't it?" My voice stayed calm, quiet, but something in it made him stop talking. "You've never paid back the $20,000 I gave you. David still owes me $35,000 that I borrowed against my house. I'm 65 years old and making loan payments for my children's lives, while you take vacations and throw parties I'm not invited to. We were going to pay you back." "When, Michael? When were you going to pay me back? Before or after you forgot my birthday for the 3rd year in a row? Before or after you decided I wasn't immediate family anymore?" "Mom, you're being dramatic. We've been busy." "No." The word came out stronger this time. "I'm not being dramatic. I'm being honest, and my honest answer is no. I don't have $10,000 to give you. I don't have anything left to give you. You've already taken it all." "I can't believe you're doing this. It's Emma's wedding." "Then Emma should have called her grandmother herself. But she didn't, did she? Because she doesn't think of me as her grandmother anymore. None of you do. I'm just the woman who used to be useful."
I could hear his breathing, heavy and angry. "Fine," he said finally. "I'll figure it out myself, but don't expect us to come running when you need help someday." The irony of that statement would have been funny if it didn't hurt so much. "Goodbye, Michael." I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from liberation. I had said no. For the first time in 40 years of motherhood, I had put myself first. And the world hadn't ended. The next week, I did something I should have done years ago. I made an appointment with a lawyer. Patricia Goldstein was 62, sharp-eyed, and had a reputation for being direct. She listened to my story without interrupting, took notes, and finally sat back in her chair. "Maeve, I'm going to be honest with you. Legally, you don't have much recourse for the money. The loans you gave them weren't documented with formal contracts. But what we can do is protect what you have left." She helped me set up a new bank account at a different bank. We transferred my remaining savings, my Social Security direct deposit, everything. The old account, the one my sons had access to for emergencies, I left open with exactly $100. We refinanced the loan on my house, extending the payments so they were manageable, and made sure my sons' names were nowhere on the paperwork. I changed my will. Everything I had would go to charity, not because I was vindictive, but because I had finally accepted that my sons didn't need me. They had made that clear. So they wouldn't get one more thing from me after I was gone. Patricia looked at me over her glasses. "May, I'm going to be honest with you. Legally, you don't have much recourse for the money. The loans you gave them weren't documented with formal contracts, but what we can do is protect what you have left." She helped me set up a new bank account at a different bank. We transferred my remaining savings, my Social Security direct deposit, everything. The old account, the one my sons had access to for emergencies, I left open with exactly $100. We refinanced the loan on my house, extending the payments so they were manageable, and made sure my sons' names were nowhere on the paperwork. I changed my will. Everything I had would go to charity. Not because I was vindictive, but because I had finally accepted that my sons didn't need me. They had made that clear. So they wouldn't get one more thing from me after I was gone. Patricia looked at me over her glasses. "May, have you thought about what comes next? They're going to be angry when they find out." "I know. They might accuse you of being senile, try to claim you're not capable of making these decisions. Let them try. I'm healthier than I've ever been, and my mind is perfectly clear. Clearer than it's been in years, actually." She smiled. "Good for you." The confrontation came exactly 2 weeks before Emma's wedding. I was in my garden, deadheading roses, when I heard car doors slam. Both my sons' vehicles were in my driveway. They came around the side of the house together, Michael and David, with Lisa and Cheryl following behind. Their faces were set in identical expressions of barely controlled anger. "Mom, we need to talk," Michael said. I straightened up, set down my pruning shears, and looked at them calmly. "Hello, boys." "What the hell did you do?" David demanded. "I went to transfer some money from your account for the boys' school registration, and it was empty. Just $100. So they had been helping themselves to my money. I had suspected, but having it confirmed still sent a cold chill through me. "I moved my money to a new account," I said simply. "Without telling us?" Lisa stepped forward. "May, we need access to your account. What if there's an emergency?" "Then you'll handle it yourselves, like adults." "Mom, this is crazy," Michael said, his voice rising. "You're acting paranoid. Did someone put these ideas in your head?" "Ah."
There it was, the suggestion that I wasn't capable of thinking for myself. The only person who put ideas in my head was me, I said. I put the idea there that I deserve to be treated with respect, that I deserve to keep the money I earned, that I deserve to be included in my family's life, not just when you need something from me. We include you, Cheryl protested. You're being unfair. Really? When was I last invited to Sunday dinner? When did any of you call me just to talk? When was Emma's engagement party that I wasn't invited to? They exchanged glances. Michael stepped forward, his voice softening into the reasonable tone he used when he was trying to manipulate someone. I recognized it because I had heard him use it on his wife, his daughter, his coworkers. I just had never admitted he used it on me too. Mom, I think you're confused. You're getting older, and sometimes that can affect our judgment. Maybe we should talk to your doctor about whether you should still be living alone. Stop. The word came out like a whip crack. They all froze. I am 65 years old, not 95. I work 20 hours a week at the library. I manage my own finances, my own health, my own home. I am not confused, Michael. I am clear-headed for the first time in decades. Then why are you doing this? David asked. Why are you punishing us? Punishing you? I felt something bubble up in my chest, not quite laughter, not quite tears. I gave you everything I had. I emptied my savings, mortgaged my home, raised your children, sacrificed my own life so you could build yours. And you couldn't even invite me to my granddaughter's engagement party? You couldn't call me on my birthday? You couldn't include me in family photos. How is protecting myself from further harm punishing you? We were busy. No, I held up my hand. Don't say you were busy. You were busy for Patricia, who flew in from Florida. You were busy for family beach trips and holidays and parties. You just weren't busy for me. Because I didn't matter anymore. I had already given you what you needed. Lisa's face was red. This is about the wedding. You're mad because Emma didn't ask you to be in the wedding party. This is about 6 years of slowly being erased from my own family while still being expected to fund your lives. This is about being treated like an ATM with a pulse. That's not fair. Michael's voice rose. We love you. Do you? I looked at him directly. When was the last time you told me that? When was the last time you asked how I was doing and actually waited for an answer? When was the last time you wanted me, not my money? He opened his mouth, closed it, couldn't answer. I have worked it all out, I continued, my voice steady, with a lawyer. My finances are protected. My house is in a trust. You have no access to anything. And before you threaten me with abandonment or cutting me off from my grandchildren, let me save you the effort. You already did that, years ago. I'm just finally accepting it. Mom, David's voice cracked slightly. I loved you boys with everything I had. I would have done anything for you. I did do everything for you. But love isn't supposed to be a one-way street. And I'm too old and too tired to keep giving to people who take me for granted. So that's it? Michael's voice was hard now, angry. You're just going to cut us off? No, sweetheart, you cut me off. I'm just finally stopping the bleeding. We stood there in my garden, the 5 of us, and the silence stretched out like a canyon. Finally, Lisa spoke up. What about Emma's wedding? You're still coming, right? I looked at her for a long moment. I don't know yet, I said truthfully. I'll have to think about whether I want to spend a day watching my granddaughter celebrate her joy while treating me like a stranger. You're unbelievable, Michael spat.
Selfish. We needed your help, and you turned your back on us. Yes, I said softly. I suppose I finally did. Just like you turned your back on me when I stopped being useful. They left in a storm of slammed car doors and screeched tires. The neighbors probably heard everything. I didn't care. I stood in my garden, surrounded by my roses, and I felt lighter than I had in years. Emma called me 3 days before the wedding. I was surprised when her name appeared on my phone. My hand hesitated over the answer button, then I picked up. Hello? Grandma May? Her voice was small, younger than her 23 years. It's Emma. I know, sweetheart. I can see your name on my phone. A long pause. Can I come over? Of course. She arrived an hour later, pulling into my driveway in the car I had helped her parents buy for her 16th birthday, another expense I had covered that had never been acknowledged. She stood on my porch, and I saw that she'd been crying.
Come in, I said gently. We sat at my kitchen table, the same table where she had told me about her day over cookies, where I had helped her with homework, where she had sat with me for thousands of small, ordinary moments that I thought mattered. Dad told me what happened, she said finally. About the money, about you changing your accounts. I see. He said you were being selfish, that you refused to help with the wedding. I didn't respond, just waited. But then I started thinking about some things. She twisted her hands together. I remembered that engagement party. Mom insisted we couldn't invite you because the venue had a limit and Patricia was already flying in. But we had 50 people there, Grandma. There was room. Tears started sliding down her cheeks. And I remembered all the times growing up when you wanted to see me and my parents said no. They said I was too busy, but I wasn't always busy. They didn't make time for you. Emma. No, let me finish. She wiped her face. I didn't ask you to be in my wedding party because Mom said Patricia would be hurt if she wasn't the only grandmother in the party. She said you'd understand. And I went along with it because it was easier than arguing. She looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. Dad told me you raised me for 4 years when I was little. I didn't remember. Or I did remember, but I didn't realize, Grandma, you basically gave up your life for me, didn't you? I did it because I loved you, I said simply. I never wanted anything in return. But you deserved something. You deserved to be treated like you mattered. And we didn't do that. I didn't do that. Her voice broke. I forgot about you, Grandma. I let my parents push you out and I forgot about you, and I'm so sorry. I reached across the table and took her hand. It was the first time we'd touched in months. Emma, honey, you were a child, and then you were a teenager, and now you're a young woman building your own life. You didn't do anything wrong. Yes, I did. I forgot the person who loved me most in the world. We sat there crying together, and it was the first honest moment I'd had with my family in years. Will you come to my wedding? Please? I want you there. Not because you're supposed to be there, but because I want you there. I want my grandma. I thought about it carefully, about the pain of the past years, about the wedding where I would sit in the back like an afterthought while Patricia stood at the altar. But I also thought about this girl I loved, who had been brave enough to come here and be honest. Yes, I said, I'll come. She hugged me then, and for just a moment, she was 3 years old again.
her arms around my neck, her voice saying, "Grandma Nay," like it was the most important name in the world. I did go to the wedding. I bought a new dress, the first new dress I'd purchased for myself in 5 years. I had my hair done. I wore the pearls Thomas had given me on our 20th anniversary. I sat in the 4th row, not the front. Patricia stood at the altar as the maid of honor. My sons barely acknowledged me. But when Emma walked down the aisle, she saw me, and she smiled, a real smile, just for me. During the reception, she came to my table. In front of everyone, she took my hand and said, "I want to introduce you all to my Grandma May. She's the woman who taught me what real love looks like. She's the strongest person I know." It wasn't enough to undo years of hurt, but it was a beginning. That night, I came home to my quiet house and made myself a cup of tea. I sat on my porch and looked at the stars, and I thought about my life. I had given everything to my children, my youth, my money, my energy, my time. I had loved them with a ferocity that knew no limits, and they had taken it all and still wanted more. But I had learned something crucial. Love given freely is a beautiful gift, but respect must be earned, and boundaries are not betrayal. They are self-preservation. My sons might never understand what they had done. They might always see me as the difficult mother who stopped being convenient. That was their choice, their burden to carry. I had carried enough. At 65 years old, I was finally learning to put myself first, to value my own time, my own money, my own peace of mind. It felt strange and uncomfortable, like wearing shoes that didn't quite fit yet, but it also felt right. I wasn't a bitter woman. I wasn't angry anymore. I was just clear. Clear about what I deserved, clear about what I would no longer accept, clear about the difference between being loving and being used. The night was warm, and somewhere down the street I could hear children laughing. Life continuing, as it always does. I sipped my tea and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not the peace that comes from being needed, the peace that comes from knowing your own worth. I was 65 years old, and for the first time in my life, I was free. Free from the expectation that I would always give more than I received, free from the belief that my value came from my usefulness, free from the desperate hope that if I just loved them enough, they would love me back the same way. They might not, and that was okay, because I had finally learned the most important lesson. I was enough all by myself. I finished my tea as the stars came out bright and infinite above me. Tomorrow, I would wake up in my little house that was finally truly mine. I would tend my garden and read my books and call my friend Helen for lunch. I would live my life not in service to others' needs, but in honor of my own worth. At 65 years old, I realized my sons no longer needed me. But I had also realized something far more important. I no longer needed them to need me. And that knowledge, that hard-won, painful, beautiful knowledge, had set me free.